Okay, so you can start off by stating your name and when you were born.
My name is Sandra Smith, and I was born August 4th.
The year.
1949. Okay, I said it, 1949.
Okay, and then how did you get to Texas, or were you?
We were born here.
How'd your family get here?
My mother was born here. My grandmother and grandfather came here. I guess, in something that was similar to the Katrina thing, but it happened in the early 1900s when they were flooded out of Louisiana. They came here.
Okay. And so how did you, do you remember anything about your childhood? Or like what do you remember growing up during that time?
We grew up in Fifth Ward, and it was a pretty close-knit community. Everybody knew each other, and we went to our Mother of Mercy in Fifth Ward. So everything was centered around that community.
Okay, and did your mother discuss racism with you during that time?
Well, indirect.
Or how
Well,
did she?
kind of, sort of. We really didn't have a lot of contact with anybody other than the people in our community. So we didn't. I didn't really. She didn't really talk to us about racism, but I do remember my grandmother riding the bus, and we'd pick her up, from the bus stop, and she would be at the back of the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So I eventually came to know that was, where black people sat, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so you did say you were an alumni of TSU.
Mm-hmm.
You got your master's there.
Correct.
What did you study, or why did you choose TSU, and what did you study?
Well, it was very, very convenient for me because I was living in Houston. I was a single parent, and I had 2 children. And I already had a job. I worked for HISD as a teacher. And by the time I got my master's, I had been teaching for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But again, I needed something convenient because I had to work, and then I had daughters too. So I had to just kind of work everything out. And TSU was very good about afternoon classes and evening classes. Yeah, so.
Okay, and then how important do you think HBCUs are during that time and today?
Very important. Otherwise, how would a lot of people would not have been able to get an education otherwise? Mm-hmm. It would have been very difficult for me to. It was difficult already having children and mm-hmm. working on a master's, but especially small children. But it gave me an opportunity, to do something better for me and my kids.
Right, that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Exactly. Financially speaking, because the cost was manageable, mm-hmm. and it was convenient for me.
My name is John L. Smith. I was born here in Houston, Texas in 1946, November 24th.
Okay. How did your family get to Texas?
Well, it depends on what side of the family we're talking about. On my maternal side, they came from Louisiana. And before Louisiana, I have no idea, but they all immigrated here from Louisiana in the early 1900s, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. On my father's side, they were my grandfather, my grandmother, paternal grandfather and grandmother were born in Navasota, Texas. But my paternal great-grandmother mm-hmm. was born in Kentucky before slavery ended. Mm-hmm. So she was born a slave in Kentucky, and somehow or another she migrated to Texas. I have no idea how she got to Navasota.
Oh,
Texas.
Okay. What do you remember about your childhood?
Oh, I have vivid memories of my childhood. I grew up in a in Fifth Ward, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Houston was pretty much segregated. We had Jim Crow laws were still in effect.
Mm-hmm.
But the neighborhood that I grew up in was a very vibrant black neighborhood with a lot of businesses, small businesses, barbershops, dentists, lawyers, doctors, clubs, restaurants, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a pretty vibrant and economically sound neighborhood at the time, even though it was segregated.
Mm-hmm. So my dad was telling me that when you were working as a producer,
Mm-hmm.
you've seen video or you have video. Do you like remember anything about the video, or do you have
Video
of the civil rights movement or something during that time?
oh no, what he was probably mentioning was when I was working for Channel 11.
Mm-hmm.
The last documentary that I produced and directed was called Mutiny on the Bayou, which was a documentary dealing with an incident that happened here in Houston, Texas in 1917.
Oh, okay.
And that was when a group of black soldiers during World War One were sent down here to guard the construction site of Camp Logan, which was located where present day Memorial Park is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And in the course of that, they had to endure. The black soldiers had to endure all the Jim Crow laws. They had to ride on the back of the trolley cars. They were beaten and dealt with harshly by the Houston Police Department, who were basically white racists. And because of that, and an incident that happened, one of the soldiers, make a long story short, one of the soldiers got beaten up by one of the policemen and put in jail. Mm-hmm. The men back at the camp had heard that he was killed, so they mutinied, and they marched on the City of Houston Police Department. And about 12 people ended up being killed, and 13 black soldiers originally ended up being hung for murder. And it was actually the largest murder trial in the history of the United States at the time. Yes.
Oh wow!
So I did a documentary on that.
Okay, that's what that was. Okay. So growing up, did your parents discuss racism with you?
Yes, my parents did discuss racism with me on a number of occasions. You know, we lived in a very segregated society at that time in Houston, Texas. So basically, they were trying to protect me from any trouble that I might get into with white people.
Right.
But I remember one occasion when, at the time there was an amusement park here in Houston, Texas called Playland Park. Mm-hmm. And it's much like Astro World was. And it was segregated. So black folks couldn't go to Playland Park except on one day of the year. One day in the year, and that one day was Juneteenth. On Juneteenth, they would allow black people to go to. So it was like Black People Day.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go. And I was excited about it because it was an amusement park. My dad told me, no, you're not going to Playland Park. I won't let you go to Playland Park because if they can't let you go any day of the year, you're not going just one day out of the year. Mm-hmm. So X out Playland Park. And I never did get to go to Playland Park. But I recall Houston during those days when I was growing up was a very segregated city. It was, the only contact basically we had with white people most of the time was when we went downtown to shop. Mm-hmm. Or if we had some business dealings with white people. But when we went downtown to shop, I recall the black and white water fountains, the black and white waiting rooms, the many different places downtown you couldn't eat because you were black. You couldn't even try on clothes on some occasions because if you went into a store and you were black, you couldn't try those clothes on. They didn't want you to try them on and then give them back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember all kinds of stuff like that.
So you are also an alumni for TSU. What did you study while you were there?
I majored in business administration with a concentration in marketing. Mm-hmm. And I graduated with a BBA degree in 1975.
And why did you choose TSU?
Well, I had recently returned from doing 4 years in the military. Okay. And and I wanted to use the GI Bill to go. I had gone to school before I went to the military only for a year, and I wanted to finish my education. TSU seems like a very convenient place for me to go since I lived in Third Ward at the time. But also I was excited about going to a historically black college. I thought that this was during the 70s, so it was the student protest and all of this kind of political action things that were going on with black people. And it was just an exciting time, and TSU was part of that exciting time.